record. Thank you all for being here for today's webinar, Leading with Compassion During the COVID-19 Crisis. If you're a person who shares on Twitter or Facebook, please feel free to use the hashtag #Lives4Health. If you're just joining us, the easiest way to access the functions in Zoom is to exit the full screen mode. If you put your mouse at the top part of the Zoom window, you'll see an option for exit full screen. You'll now be able to have a smaller window with Zoom and access some of the functions more easily. You can click on the chat icon to send messages to all of the panelists or attendees. To share your questions or comments with everyone, please select all attendees and panelists. To access closed captioning, please click on the closed caption icon for the options available there. If you need technical support during the webinar, please use the Q&A function in Zoom. You will also see two panelists with the names Tech 1 and Tech 2. They're available to help you with your technical issues. All participants are automatically muted upon entry. If you're having problems hearing the panelists, you may need to adjust your audio settings on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom panel. You may either need to change your output method or adjust the volume up or down if we're too loud or too soft. After I'm done with the introductions, we are going to stop sharing a PowerPoint. You may want to change your view. This allows you to see all the panelists in a Brady Bunch style view rather than the person who's speaking in a larger view. And you can do that by clicking on the little grid at the upper right-hand side of your screen. I want to welcome everyone to today's National Network of Libraries webinar. This session is being hosted by the Greater Midwest region as part of its Kernel of Knowledge series. For those of you who are not familiar with the Greater Midwest region, we are located at the University of Iowa, hence the Kernel in our Kernel of Knowledge series. We have an exciting webinar planned for you today, so I want to go ahead and get started and make sure we have plenty of time for all of our panelists. Just a few housekeeping things to note. As I said, you're all automatically muted upon entry, so please use the chat function to ask questions or make comments. This webinar provides 1.5 continuing education credits from the Medical Library Association, and I will send the link for that with the video recording in about a week. I'd also like to quickly introduce myself. My name is Bobby Newman, and I'm going to be the host and the moderator of the panel today. I am the Community Engagement and Outreach Specialist for the Greater Midwest region of the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. And before we get to our panelists, I just want to do a quick word about who we are, since many of you, I think, are new to the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. You might be familiar with some of these acronyms, but most people get confused about the relationship between them. The National Institutes of Health is the nation's leading medical research agency. Right now, many of you might be familiar with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, headed by Dr. Fauci. This is one of the many institutes and centers at the National Institutes of Health. The National Library of Medicine is also an institute at NIH, and it's the world's largest biomedical library, which maintains and makes available a vast print collection and produces electronic information resources like Medline Plus and PubMed. NNLM is the National Network of Libraries of Medicine and is an outreach program of the National Library of Medicine. The NNLM is made up of 8 geographical regions, and I am from the Greater Midwest Regional Office. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's panelists. Beth Gallaway is the director for the Grafton Public Library in Massachusetts. Jen Carson is the director from the L.P. Fisher Public Library, Woodstock, New Brunswick, Canada. Callan Ignoli, which I did not practice, I apologize, is the director from the library at the Olin College of Engineering in Needham, Massachusetts. Andy Hamilton is the technology services manager at the Mesa Community Libraries in Grand Junction, Colorado. For those of you who don't know, that's on the warmer side of Colorado. He keeps reminding us. Ann Langley is the dean at the Yukon Library. Jennifer Wertkin is the director of the Wellfleet Public Library on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And Emily Glenn is the associate dean in Education and Research Services at McGowan Library of Medicine, University of Nebraska Medical Center. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Now, if you have in the upper right-hand side of your Zoom panel, if you click on the icon that looks like the little boxes I showed, you can see us all in what looks like a Brady Bunch view. Otherwise, what you're going to be seeing is the person who's speaking will be the biggest thing. What we have this webinar set up is a Q&A. So I will be asking the panelists a series of questions that we've agreed upon ahead of time and calling out them in order. So one of the things we'd like to do while we're doing the introduction of the panelists is hear from you. So if you could take a minute and let us know where you're joining from today. And by that, I don't mean the state and city, which I am interested in, but if you're working at home, if you're working in a library that's close to the public, if you're working in a library that's open to the public, that kind of thing, we'll keep an eye on that in the chat box. I'm going to go ahead and start with the first question for our panelists, which is, what is the status of your library? Where are staff working and are they being paid? And we'll go ahead and start with Beth with this question.
Thanks, Bobby. Hi, everyone. So I'm at home in my Lego-filled living room. The Grafton Public Library has been closed until further notice since mid-March. We stopped programming March 11th, and then we closed on March 13th. We had scheduled a staff development day and had a half day anyway, but I came down with a fever that day and was concerned about what I had and my own exposure. So we closed Thursday and Friday, spent the weekend advocating for the library to remain closed, and then in lockstep with public schools and the municipal center, we did shut down to the public March 16th. About a month ago. I directed my own staff to heed our governor's directive to work from home when possible, and then I did everything I could to make it possible for all of them to do so. Certainly there were plenty of projects that they could have been called in to do at work, but I just felt it was safest for everyone to be at home. My boss had stressed that returning phone calls and emails from our patrons and residents was the highest priority, so that's just been our focus and mission. So at this point, 14 out of 16 permanent, half full-time, half part-time staff have been working from home. Only one staff member declined the option to have a laptop set up with everything she needed and work at her house, which is only a block from the library. So she still comes in just a few hours a week. She's the one collecting the mail and paying the bills. And then we also have a library page who really, he is on the spectrum. We have no other work he can do, and my boss just said, pay him. So there's no work that he can do. He sometimes joins in on our Zoom staff meetings, but he's kind of the only one getting paid to do, nothing. Our Wi-Fi is still on and available to the public, but we haven't publicized it. And frankly, it's because I want patrons and the public to just stay home. We did have a staff member who asked to come in. She had slow internet at home and her daughter needed to register for college classes, but she came and she sat on the library's porch to access that service. So all the in-person services, copying, faxing, notarizing, test proctoring, passport acceptance, that's what we've stopped. Everything else we just transferred pretty simply to a digital format. One of the biggest losses is that we had been in process of trying a new winter reading program that was Harry Potter themed, and it was scheduled to run to the end of the month with a grand prize winner drawing, but without the ability to have patrons come in and sort of show us what they'd read and collect their badges and pins. It's just kind of on hiatus, and we'll resume that, they can pick up their stuff for completing once we reopen. So again, all permanent staff, they're working, they're being paid, and they're accounting for their work time using a Google spreadsheet, which we've renamed more disco, less pandemic, kind of put a little humorous spin on it. And then they're punching in with time cards. And for anyone who doesn't need all their scheduled hours for the week, I'm just entering that information at the end of the pay period. As I mentioned, we're just paying the page as if it were a snow day. We're closed beyond our control, so he's just getting paid. We do have 3 people who've been on call as substitute staff, so they're not earning right now because there are no desk shifts to cover. And they've actually been temporarily removed from the payroll system because there's a per user fee to have them sort of just sitting in limbo. Thankfully and gratefully and amazingly to date, neither trustees nor our town administration has suggested that we furlough or lay off staff. I feel like I should knock on wood, but I'm just supremely grateful for that. That's an act of compassion in and of itself, but also a real act of faith that what we do is important and valuable, and we can continue to do it remotely as long as we have to and still really provide stellar quality service to our patrons and the public and to each other.
Thank you, Beth. Jen, do you want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, so our library is closed. It's been closed since the 21st of March, and it closed around the same time as the schools closed here in New Brunswick, Canada. And all my staff that are permanent are home and being paid. I'm working from home. I'm the director. And so I do go into the library about once a week to collect bills and deal with anything in the physical building that needs to be done. But the rest of the staff are home. They're not working unless they have projects that they'd like to do. So one of my staff members is our archivist and genealogist. And so he's been fielding questions from patrons and working on genealogy projects from home. But I'm not requiring the staff to do anything other than attend, the occasional phone call, staff meeting, or, do a little Facebook post or something like that. But it's really low key and they're all being paid.
Great, thank you very much, Jen. Kellen.
Hi, so I am the director at a very small academic library. And when I say small, I mean it. I only have 2 colleagues, and we serve a student body of 360. And that has worked to our advantage in a lot of different ways, which I'll touch on here in this intro. We shut down more or less on March 13th, which was the Friday before our spring break started. And essentially what happened that week, the week before spring break, was that students were told on, I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday, that essentially they had to get out, if possible, by the middle of the following week in spring break. There were a few students that couldn't leave campus, which has been a problem for other colleges as well. And I'm interested to hear how the other academic librarians have experienced this on the call. But because we are so extremely small, we only have 4 students left on our campus, which is significantly less than what I've heard about from some others. So the one thing that we had to keep in mind was that the library is open to the public, which I'm sure some of the other academic libraries on the call maybe also are. And it's pretty hard for us to communicate with our public patrons, not that we have a ton of them, because we're flanked by 2 of the best public libraries in the state, pretty much. So there's not really much demand for them to come to a weird engineering school library, but they still do come. So my priority when I was kind of closing things down, the last day that I reported was on March 16th, was to make sure that people knew that they couldn't go in the library, and that, we hadn't just like locked the doors and pieced out, but there was some, actual thought behind what was going on there. And we also, talked amongst ourselves on campus too, to determine like what sort of accessibility to buildings we were going to have on campus for the students that are remaining. And it was initially kind of hard for me to let go of my library superhero mentality, which is, some people call that vocational awe. I definitely had a moment of thinking like, oh my God, I have to be here to help them do whatever, I don't know. And then I kind of had like a realization over the weekend right before spring break that wasn't the right thing to do for anyone. So what we've done for our 4 students that are still on campus is we essentially have let them all stay in one dorm, but they can't contact each other and they can't congregate in any way. So the dining hall is still open from 12 to 7, and they can go get food, and then they basically have to go pick it up in like a container box and then leave. And the dining hall staff everyone is still working. Our facilities and dining hall staff are still employed. And so there's no talk currently on our campus of layoffs. We are endowment dependent, so we're a little bit less under the gun than some more tuition dependent schools. Also, we're very small. So far, the school's attitude has been very personnel and person forward, which I really appreciate. There's no, like I said, no talk of anyone losing their jobs at this point. So that is good. And I think, the way that they've approached managing us too has really felt hands off, but like yet enough of a sort of emotional check-in component that we don't feel completely alone. So we've had a couple of different staff surveys we filled out to sort of check in with like our morale and the challenges we're facing and things like that. But I've been really impressed with our leadership, and it definitely has, like, as a relatively new person on campus, has really made me like appreciate and like understand the managerial culture there in a way that I think makes me want to stick around, which I really appreciate.
That's great. Thank you, Callan. Okay, Andy. Excuse me, Andy.
Hello, Andy Hamilton. I'm just now noticing that I'm the only admin person here. I'm a manager, but I'm not one of the administrators. But I work for a mid-sized public library in Western Colorado, based out of Grand Junction, Colorado. Our public library is a special tax district, which will be important later as I explain how we're able to do some of the things that we can do. And so I'm on our management team, so I'll talk a little bit about our whole library and then a little bit more specifically about my team, which is 8 individuals. But we have about 100 in our library. On March 14th, we closed to the public at the end of the day on Saturday, and we continued to have staff coming into the building for about a week and a half. On the 24th in Colorado, the governor issued a stay-at-home order, and so all employees were told to go home with the option to work from home. And then we also created a special category in our time clock software for miscellaneous pay for time not worked. And so everyone is still getting paid, everyone, whether the position is dependent on normally staffing a service desk, a page, all the way up through the management and the administrators. We are very fortunate in that our special district status allows us to directly collect that tax money. So we theoretically, on the day that we closed, could fill everybody's salaries to the end of the year. So that's been really fortunate. Our staff are really lucky in that situation. Everyone that is interested in working from home has had that ability, and that has actually produced some really cool things for our department. I'm the technology services manager, so I've been pretty busy, and my team includes a couple of people who are video editors. So we actually created essentially that first week, we sort of created a television studio in our library so that we could produce programming online. And then when we transitioned to working from home, we started allowing any staff that were interested and that had access to technology to record themselves through something like this, whether it was Google Hangouts or their phone or whatever, send us the files, we'll edit them together. And then we've been putting out a pretty robust schedule of programming on social media. We have a Tuesday and Thursday story time, a Wednesday Spanish story time, all happening at 10 o'clock in the morning. Monday, we offer what's called an early literacy boredom buster, which is usually an activity of some kind. Wednesday and Thursday evenings, we offer adult programming, which in some cases it's a lecture demonstration, photography thing. We have a staff member that's a really great trumpet player. So he recorded himself playing trumpet, and then we're running April's National Poetry Month, so we're running our poetry contest winners' poems over top of his trumpet playing. And Thursday we're producing Kids Club. So there's a lot of all this going on. And so staff are able to do what is of interest to them. We have about 100 staff, which I might have mentioned, so it kind of rotates. The expectation doesn't fall on any one person too heavily. So we're really lucky to continue to be paid, and we are doing a lot of stuff from home.
Great, thank you, Andy. Let's see, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer Wirtgen. I'm the director of the Wellfleet Library on Cape Cod. We're way out on Cape Cod, and our year-round population is under 3,000 people, but we are a very busy library because we're one of the only buildings in town that's open all year round, and so we're very much a community center. Our last day open was Monday the 16th, but our sister libraries on both sides of us closed 2 days before that. So on Sunday and Monday, we were swarmed with people, and I think that's something people have to keep in mind. Public libraries in neighboring towns, when they open up, there has to be some kind of coordinated effort because we closed later than our hours were meant to close because of the lines out the door to check out materials. Anyway, at first I had staff there staggered, and it was very anxiety producing because of the amount of cleaning that had to be done in the building, and everybody on my staff having anxiety about coming in to the building and keeping distant from each other. And I spoke to my wonderful town administration and our health agent, and expressed my concerns, and I said I really felt like everybody could do their work from home, and was very happy with the response I got and the support I got from my administration that I could run my own department. And we do our work from home now. I do have going into the building to get to pick up bills, to do a couple of small projects that can't be done from home, to grab things, to scan payroll, a couple of those small things. But for the most part, everything's done at home. Everybody who wants to be at home can be at home. And I feel like having that trust with my town administration and full board support has been a really wonderful thing right now. And we have already, the governor's of Massachusetts, his stay at home is to reopen on May 4th. That's what we have right now. The schools are closed for the rest of the school year. We've heard nothing about libraries, but so we're not really sure what we're going to do on May 4th. We're not going to fling the doors open, but we're kind of wondering what's going on. And, I'm working with staff and surrounding libraries to see what we can do to keep everybody safe and to try to level everybody's anxiety about it, because that's my number one concern with the whole thing. And all of our programs are canceled right now through May and probably through June.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, Jennifer. Anne?
Ann Langley, Dean, UConn Library. University of Connecticut has about 30,000 students. We have libraries across the state and campuses across the state. I have less than 100 staff, and with a few exceptions, everyone is working from home. The exceptions are our security and facilities and mailroom. They are actually working in shifts so that no more than one person is in our main library at any time. So they have worked out their schedules that way. On March 12th, the governor and the president of the university sent out a message saying that all non-essential, that students and faculty would be going to digital interactions, and that non-essential staff should work home. And so I got a group together of anyone who had staff, all of my unit heads, and we had a planning meeting. What would this look like? I had already given them a heads up. And we all decided that the most important thing was human safety, and that everybody would work from home unless it was facilities oriented. I had offered to set an example by coming in, and my staff said, nope, you need to set an example by working from home so that everyone else feels like they can work from home, so they aren't feeling like they have to come in. So I agreed. We set down some principles. Our principles were human safety, and for everyone involved, staff and patrons. And so that kind of drove all of our decisions. So March 13th was the final day. Everybody, we gave people ideas: clean out your fridge, take your plants, coordinate all of that. And we also said, we'll just go home and work, and we'll figure out the details later. So the following week, we got people together to see who needed a laptop, who didn't have a comfortable chair, did we need to buy anything, did they need to come to the office or to the library and pick something up. So we coordinated that so that it was safe distancing. People came and got chairs so they could work from home. We made sure people had laptops. We also made the decision very early on that we had already budgeted our money to pay our student assistants. And so once we found out that we could pay our work study students, the federal government allowed that we decided to just pay all of our students. We had the money, we would just pay them. So whatever hours they were scheduled to work regularly, that's what they would be paid for. And we knew that they didn't they didn't have any work to do because most of them sat at desks or managed material objects, but that was okay. We felt like it was really important that they got paid for their planned work, because a lot of college students, they depend on that money, whether they're at campus or not. So we kind of stuck to that line. Even when the rest of UConn was trying to figure it out, we made a case to our provost, we're going to continue to pay our students. We budgeted the money. We're going to continue to do that till the last day of the semester, as we would anyway. So we're continuing to do that. We also, aren't charging fines. We requested a deep clean of our entire 500,000 square foot building. So we were on the list to get really deep cleaned. We're offering everything that can be offered in a virtual environment. If people have books, we're telling them to keep them for now. We aren't charging any fines. And we also, one of the things that's really super awesome, we use Slack a lot to stay in touch. And one of our facilities and security folks we allowed her to bring her dogs into the building when she goes in. And she takes pictures of her dogs in various conference rooms and in various parts of the library and posts them on Slack. And it's really nice to see the building and see it with dogs in it.
That's great. I like that. I rescued our office plants before we shut down, and so I need to start taking pictures and sharing them with my office mates. I don't think they care as much. Okay, Emily, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Emily, thanks. So the McGugan Library of Medicine, we have 30 faculty and staff, and everyone is working from home and working remotely, all receiving their full paychecks. We had decided that that is the way that we were going to go, and we try to assign work to folks who maybe didn't have maybe traditional things that would be usually in their arena for working from home. So we did some kind of shifting around. Our timeline kind of is very similar to others that I've heard. We had a lot go down in March. In very early March, we started talking about, what if this happens? This could be a scenario. And being on an academic medical center campus, we were receiving a lot of information from various leaders and from the healthcare side, considerations in our community. And I think our campus was kind of looked at as a big source of information there. So that was kind of part of our awareness. And well, it's, always good to have the information that can kind of sway you to maybe take action at different times. So March 16th through 18th is really our big transition time. And by the 18th, everyone is out of the office. And I think the interesting part about our situation is that we had not really a library. We're going through a renovation. And so we were already remote. We had moved last spring into kind of a shared laboratory kind of space that we had made cube farms in. A couple of different farms of those were occupied by folks, but this meant that to the campus and to the folks that we consider our users, we were already virtual and remotely available to them. We were going places on campus and meeting with folks and such, but we were also doing that virtually already. And so from our service standpoint, we were able to transition the services to be all remotely available. Collections was a little bit trickier. We had some books out, we had some interlibrary loan stuff out, we had some anatomical models out. And so we had to figure out how to get those, tell people to keep the books, return if you can. We're doing this very short time window. We got our models back and just arranged to close down our temporary space. So we did the work of inventorying our folks to find out what kind of resources they had at home. Do they have internet? What does that look like? Do they have their own computer? Do they have a tablet? Do we need to get them a laptop? We ended up ordering a couple laptops to make sure that folks were taken care of. And we have a fantastic tech support person dedicated to the library, and so he was able to get on all of the those little pieces of remote desktop and this and that thing working. We have our soft phone system has to run through the computers, and so there are just lots of little things that we had to make sure were working for everyone. So after folks were able to test that and confirm and say they were good to go, they were good to go, and they were from home. So we had in Nebraska, we never had a lockdown per se in the Omaha area or in the state, but we've had directed health measures from our governor. However, the university system, the University of Nebraska system, which is 4 campuses, they at the leadership level, similar to Connecticut, they said, you are not coming on campus, it's only essential personnel. And they moved that direction we expected it, and it happened at the end of March. So with that, some of our essential personnel were maybe not folks that are facilities related or doing our library security, but they're actually our special collections and archives folks, because they need to get their hands on the materials. A lot of work that they're doing remotely they can do, but we're also trying to prepare for this opening of this renovated space, and there's just kind of this sense that this has to happen while this is happening. We're going to try to make it work the best we can. So our archivists were designated as essential personnel, and also some folks that are involved in the renovation and looking at our new places being built. So as we were kind of displaced, we went through the touching the technology and getting familiar with everything and settling in. And I think we've had a lot of autonomy to be able to direct how we want to be with our folks, how we can support them. Our library doesn't report up to this whole campus entity, this whole university entity, but we report directly on our campus. And the idea of spring break is it just kind of goes sideways on a Med Center campus, because we have so many different programs with so many different needs. But some of the things that we're looking forward to, or that might be an issue with our campus getting back to our next, whatever next is the medical center component and having the clinical spaces there, and kind of following along with building access and routes and what other concerns might be presented due to that. So yeah, it's a little about us. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so our next question for the panelists is going to be, how are you letting your communities or your campuses know that you still care? And so for this one, I'm asking the public libraries to go first to sort of group them together. So we'll start with Andy.
Hello. So I was taking some notes as everyone was talking. There's a lot of really great ideas and thoughts being shared. So first of all, I want to express my appreciation for all the other panelists and the work your library is doing. Grand Junction is a small city, about 65,000 people in Western Colorado. And then we serve the entire Mesa County area, which is kind of astonishingly rural in a lot of ways. So our service area is about 150,000, our service population, and it includes everything from a mountain town of like 500 people to our 65,000 person city. And so we had to make a decision early on. Internet access is not a given in our county. And we were really worried about that at first, because we made a decision early on to focus a lot on digital services, because that's stuff that we could do from home. But we did have to make that decision. There are some places that aren't, unfortunately, able to access some of the resources that we offer. And I wish that we had come up with a really astonishingly brilliant solution to that problem, but we have not been able to do that yet. So I just wanted to mention that there are still populations that we're not able to serve in the way that we would like to, though we are focusing a lot on letting our community know we care. That said, the first Tuesday that we were close to the public, we offered our very first live stream story time, just this kind of a let's see what happens sort of an idea. And it was wildly successful. Our story time, one of our storytime people, Mr. Trevor, just did a phenomenal job. It ended up getting over 4,000 views, which for us was an astonishing success. And so that led our team, the technology services team, and the communications team that does most of our social media, to really toss some ideas together kind of quickly. So we sort of refocused on our social media. We decided to do digital programming, which I sort of mentioned in the previous few the discussion, but trying to have some programming for children, some programming for adults, and just getting that out. We've established a flow now, but it did take us a while to get into that flow. So we really had to figure out our workflow for that. But to us, that's a big way of showing our community that we still care, especially with some of the responses we got for the first story time and the first Spanish story time. It was really, really powerful for all of us. So we felt that was a good use of our time. So we've been focusing on digital programming. We are sending a monthly email newsletter to all the emails that we have on file, kind of letting people know what's going on, what they can expect. We're keeping our Wi-Fi on at all of our locations. We have a central branch, and then we have 8 branch locations throughout the county. The Wi-Fi is on at all of those locations, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is the same as if we're open. And we've noticed that actually our stats have not significantly reduced since we've been physically closed, which is wild. We think it might have to do with census time and tax season, but whatever the case, people are really still using our Wi-Fi. We did a social media photo campaign where staff would write a picture that says "we miss you" and like hold it up, and we would make a little album for that. We're keeping our community garden going. We were able to set up some Wi-Fi based watering systems so that we only need one person to visit periodically. And so that's been helpful. The community garden is eventually, once it starts producing, our plan is to send a good chunk of that produce to our community food bank. So we thought it was important to keep that going. There is a large homeless community in Mesa County. And so for us thinking about how we can support them when they typically use our library as a space, thinking about how we can support them, kept the Wi-Fi on as a big one. And then we also, while we were closed to the public, but before the stay-at-home order took place, we kept our physical tax forms outside the building so that people could come up and get the tax forms if they needed a physical tax form. So that's most of the ways that I think we're trying to show that we care to our community. And then staff is also really active in community organizations. Our director meets with the Mesa County Health Department weekly to make sure that we're all on the same page about what's happening. Our stay-at-home order is lifting this weekend, so it's likely that we'll be going back next week, and we'll have some more things to do at that point for sure. But that's a little bit about how we are trying to show our community that we still care about them.
Thank you for sharing, Andy. Jennifer?
Hi. One of the things we're doing, and as I said, we're again a very small town, is working with the town to promote services that are important for people during this time of crisis. So this hit just as our website crashed, and we put together a very simple Squarespace website that basically has on the front all of our services, our everything from Libyan Overdrive to Canopy and Hoopla and all of that. And then I have a tab for COVID-19 resources, for where to get food, and things to do that are free on the web. And I've kind of reorganized everything just to focus on what is going on now and how we can help the community right now, and how we've kind of reorganized the library as it is to work with the community during this crisis. And once a week and then once every other week, there are 2 different Zoom calls that are townwide, and I make sure to get on that Zoom call and talk to the entire community about what we're doing, to make sure they're on the website, to make sure they're signed up for our newsletter, to make sure they're seeing these kinds of things, and to discuss with them what we're doing. I do a lot of social media around this. When I say I'm talking about us in the library as well. So we're doing our library stuff, but we're also promoting the other things around information. Just like we have an information table in the library that talks about where to get food and where to get information on, if you're housing insecure or whatever, that is now also on a tab on our very simple and straightforward website at the moment. I was in the middle of doing a PSA on all of this when I had a little accident and have some stitches on my face now. So we're finishing that up as soon as I get the stitches out, so that I could put that out to the town also and have real information about what our library is doing to make a difference during this time where the community has so much need. Because I think it's really important for us to show our value in as many ways as possible now that we're closed, now that we're talking about layoffs, now that we're talking about furloughs, because we are working hard and there's so much we can do, and there's so much that we are doing. And this is, and we are also doing, like Andy said, digital programming and everything. But I think each community has different needs. And one of the ways that we're showing our value is kind of working with the government as well, and highlighting some of the ways that people can get help.
Thank you, Emily. Or I'm sorry, Jennifer. Jen, you're next.
Hey, yeah. So we're kind of in a unique situation here in New Brunswick in Canada. We're one of the only places that I'm aware of that our provincial library system is the whole province wide. So even our neighboring province of Nova Scotia has different library systems, like Halifax. For example, Halifax Public Libraries in the municipality is a separate system from, say, a different part of the region. But New Brunswick is unique in the fact that all of our 64 branches are connected. And so we were told right from the beginning, New Brunswick's is sort of a success story right now. I mean, things could all change in Canada because we currently have only 118 cases of COVID, and there's been 0 deaths here. And our government shut down all of our government buildings, all schools, all libraries, all services, and immediately issued a stay-at-home order for everyone and put us into a state of emergency. And so they did not want staff doing any sort of programming or anything because they wanted to use the library, social media as channels for information about safety. And they didn't want us distracting the public with sort of like entertainment-based things until we knew for sure that people were safe. And so for like the first few weeks, it was very like, don't put anything on Facebook, don't, like if people are going on the internet, we want them to be going there for health and safety information, basically. And that was sort of what we were mandated to do. And also, it was actually kind of nice. At first, I kind of balked at it because I'm a programming librarian at heart, and I'm used to running, hundreds of programs a year, and not being able to deliver programs was really hard on me. But I was also home with 2 small children, immediately homeschooling, which I had never done before. And so I was sort of relieved that I could just focus on caring for my kids, and then also thinking about the other staff that were in that situation as well. And, some of them have children, but some of them have parents they need to look after, or adult children, or farms, or other responsibilities. And having that pressure lifted from us to not have to deliver programs right away under such stressful circumstances now in retrospect was actually a really smart decision by our government. And they've continued that tactic. We are not offering any digital programs. We're not allowed to post anything on our Facebook pages. We were, up until a few weeks ago, kind of sharing funny memes or like educational resources and things like that. But as of last week, I was given the mandate that we're even going to stop doing that, and everything's centralized and coming out of head office from our provincial government. And so they wanted to create a sort of cohesive message coming from government. I don't know, to you, those of you in the States, that might sound sort of socialist, but here in Canada it works. And so the provincial government is creating all of our Facebook tiles and videos and all those sorts of resources, and they're putting them out to all 64 libraries' Facebook and social media pages. And so the directors in each branch have been basically told to cease and desist posting anything. We can reply to comments, and we can reply to messages. I reply to emails every day from concerned patrons, but we're not actually sharing any original content anymore on our digital pages. There has been a large increase in our digital services coming out of provincial office, so they've invested heavily in audiobooks and ebooks, as well as beefing up our access to different software like Rosetta Stone, language learning, things like that. Their book drops are all closed They're locked, so people can't return any materials. And I go to the library, once a week and check to make sure things haven't been left outside. But people have been really good. They haven't left anything, which is good because it's snowy here in Canada, and there's no fines. The Wi-Fi is left on 24/7, so people can still access the internet from the parking lot. And so, yeah, it's been definitely a unique sort of situation here. But, in some ways I'm sort of jealous of all of the stuff that other libraries are delivering. But it's also taken a huge pressure off of the shoulders of staff to need to perform under such, difficult circumstances for a lot of us. And I think that's been kind of an interesting approach that we've had. But I'm also really interested to hear all of the stuff that you guys are doing as well, because it's kind of neat. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know when we're reopening. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know when we're going to get to start programming again, if there's going to be digital delivery, what Summer Reading Club looks like. It's a big old question mark right at the moment.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jen. Beth.
Thanks. So we started letting them know we cared, I would say, before we closed by putting up hand washing signs and instructions and providing information, those COVID-19 fact sheets, ways for them to social distance by moving chairs around in the building, sanitizer and wipes, and as much as we could. But I feel like one of the really significant things that we did to show people we cared about them was shutting down and rejecting curbside pickup. Rejected calling staff in to work on site, again, even though there's lots of projects we could do. On the network level, as a director, I got to vote for network policies that really benefited our end users, like extending due dates and fine amnesty. And we know that we can vote to extend those if we need to. I think right now everything might be set to be due May 1st, which is rapidly approaching. We're really focused on finding ways to get digital access to people. I think you can use, normally if your card was blocked, you wouldn't be able to get ebooks, but I think that's been lifted. So blocked cards, expired cards, no cards. We're about to debut an online card registration because, again, we have people who are local. If someone fills out an online card form online, then we can assign them a number and do the complete registration and just have a note in the record that when we reopen, they just come in and they show that proof of residency or that they live, work, or go to school or own property in the town of Grafton. And then that card becomes not just a digital e-card, but a live card. Our staff, the children's room staff, have produced not live story time, but our archive story time, so they can get in touch with their young friends and be reassuring and friendly and welcoming to them, because they really care about and miss their young patrons. And then staff are also reaching out to senior citizen volunteers and homebound delivery recipients. They have been calling with their personal cell phone numbers, so now we're trying to work with Google, use Google Voice so that staff privacy can be protected and we can reach out. But my staff has expressed concern for those people. They're not homebound, but they're the ones who the library is really a social activity. It's not just an errand to come and pick up books. And we have these Zoom meetings, and they're saying, "Oh, what about this patron? I wonder how they're doing." They came in twice a week. And so, wellness checks are not part of our job description. I think it's something we're starting to think about. We're providing lots of resources, like others of you. We're making lists of not just those online learning resources, but diversions and productivity kinds of things. I did also get a message from our town administrator that all the COVID-19 information is centralized and should be coming through the town. So we're also on Facebook and our website reposting and sharing all that information, new cases and whatnot coming out from the town. So information is a way to show that we care so that people have all that information. And then just personally, I've been trying to end my outgoing voicemail message, my email replies, and press releases with just this warm message to please stay home, stay healthy, stay safe, and don't forget to wash your hands.
Yes, wash your hands. Thank you, Beth. Okay, we're going to switch over to the academic librarians and start off with Anne.
Awesome. So community and campus. So I'll start with campus. We are using Twitter regularly to keep people in the loop, let people know what our services are. We also update our website regularly. We have a website specifically about what we are offering during the pandemic. And we hired someone to be our business librarian who is coming from China, and he and his wife and child and dog are stuck in Singapore. And so we decided, since we were all telecommuting, we could bring him on board. So he started work the first week of the pandemic, and he is acclimating extremely well. He offered to do online chat from midnight till 2 a.m. for any of our students, that wherever they are in the world or no matter where they are. So we're trying to keep that up to date as much as we can. So about telling my community, before the pandemic, I sent out weekly updates to my staff that tell them kind of what I do and what's going on at the university. I also include the provost's office and my library advisory board, which is comprised mostly of faculty across the university. I'm continuing to do that. I let them know what I'm doing. I also send out very short daily Slack and email shout outs to everybody in my staff, just saying, hey, it's week 6, day 2. I went outside today and I saw a robin, my first robin of spring. It was pretty awesome. Hope you're doing well. You know, just really just check-ins. I also, and I send that by Slack and by email because I know some people like both. I also have been doing, I did it the first 3 weeks, once a week, and then last week I got behind. But I have sent individual Slack messages to each of my staff members, and I have a spreadsheet to track all of these, to let them know that I care, to send them a light and encouraging message. I also invite them to respond if they have questions or concerns or ideas, and it's along the line of, hey, this isn't going to last forever. I know this is a hard way to work. We will eventually get back to normal, but in the meantime, take care of yourself. I joined a meeting yesterday. Let me just back up. As you can imagine, it's hard to think of something to say in all of those messages, but I try to take my cues from my staff. So I was joined a meeting of our acquisitions department yesterday, and somebody, they always do a round robin of what they're going to do that week. And someone said, I'm taking off Thursday for sanity reasons. And I realized that was such a great idea that I was going to use that in my message. So when I sent out my message yesterday, I said, don't forget, we have vacation, we have sick leave, and sanity is a really good reason to use one of those. So take care of yourselves. After I send all of those kinds of messages, I hear back from a different handful of people every time. Most people say, this is really awesome, you're checking in, I appreciate it. Other people, I've gotten some people who really needed to vent about things that they were struggling with. And as I shared with my provost, people that work in libraries are often introverts, and a lot of them live by themselves. And so I'm really, you know, they may be introverts, they may be stuck at home, but it's really important to me that they know that I care about them, that work is important, that what they're doing is important. Even if they're not super busy, I don't care, that what they do is valuable to the university and I appreciate them. And that has been, I mean, it's good for me too, but I think it's really important. And he was like, wow, I never really thought about that. All those introverts living by themselves. And I was like, yeah, they need someone to reach out to them. So even though it takes me about 2 hours to send those individual Slack updates every week to people, it's really important. And I think that's part of what I need to be doing right now. All right. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Anne. Emily.
Hi. So I absolutely agree that, that feeling valued and being like seen and recognized and checked in is so important. We've been able to do kind of a variety of things to let campus and community know we care. As I mentioned before, we're going through this renovation, and our kind of motto for this renovation time, our branding was, we're still here for you, which meant, okay, we're moving from our physical space, but we're going to be virtual and we'll continue to do all the things. And then this happened this spring. And so we're kind of redirecting and repurposing, double dipping with that message to bring this, we're still here for you, to like, we're here for you. And it does kind of work. So we're using that liberally. And so we've got a newsletter that comes out. It's our regular kind of quarterly letter. So we kind of sprinkled some there, but then we also have a new series of, I think it's National Library Week, I think. going on. Yeah, so we've got librarian profiles, and folks are working from home, so it's kind of a casual with a pet, with the "we're still here for you" or "we're here remotely" kind of message. And so we kind of want to share that. And I'm glad that we're able to. We can put out our own content and set kind of that tone from our library to you, the folks that follow us and use us. We also, along the line of that the construction and renovation, we've got this camera, and so we can keep kind of sharing progress and focusing kind of somewhere in the future, and it's a little more of a tangible thing with like there is a next, and so we keep kind of embracing that there's this space that's going to be what you all want, what we're expecting is going to come true. So we some librarians are doing some different things. We're embedded in different classes. And some of these this one class didn't exist before. It's called Impact of Infectious Diseases, and it's with our medical students, but it's primarily medical, but it's also an interdisciplinary course. And so within that class, with librarians as co-facilitators, we're getting to support faculty and support students, and also learn more about what this is like and just kind of share. And so within each of those sessions, there's kind of a time of caring and reflection in addition to the academic pursuit. So that's been a really valuable experience. Information-wise too, we've also provided some COVID-19 info. We really limited what we put out there to clinical research and to the benefit of like providing clinical care. We didn't go the patient information route at all, and really held off until there was an explicit request from our institution to share more info. In the community, we're happy to be partnering with Omaha's big digital library. It's called DoSpace, and they've requested someone to participate in their programming. And so we're going to give kind of a Finding Health information talk pretty soon. And we're not doing the online programming and kind of developing anything new at this time, but just keeping up services and keeping up the presence, I think it's good for us right now, and that's what we can do. And we're really also letting staff know, like, we're good holding the line and continuing to do what we do well. We don't need to evolve or be different like during this time. We're going to take care of our staff. So how do we do some of that? We have lunchtime Zoom meetings. One of my colleagues set up a Monday through Friday 12 to 1 open Zoom time, password protected, where anyone could drop in and show off something, talk casually, share some lunch with someone. And people have used it. And so now it's just kind of an open space that's held for potentially fun, maybe scheduled things in the near future, but it's also just like a nice way to connect that's not obligatory. So we also talk to people very explicitly about leave, and then the checking in is, how are you? What things are going well? What are the challenges? These things. And so we have our weekly meetings, and our team meetings, and our library staff meetings. But I think that there was so much information at the beginning of March and at the middle of March, and as things have evolved, and even though I think as library leadership tried to be sensitive to information overload, it still happened. And it's not a great surprise that it was important for us to remind folks, hey, we're hearing about eye strain, we're hearing about this, like there are these other issues, life crashes, whatever's happening, like we do have leave, we want you to take care of yourself. And so we've consciously communicated that throughout the library. So I think that's one way. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Callan?
So I'll be quick. We've been doing a bunch of things that are probably kind of silly sounding to most, but I don't know, maybe inspirational. One of the things that I think is probably the most important aspects of the library at Olin is that we are a very teeny tiny campus. We only have 3 buildings total, not including the dorms. So we're also all residential, so people are like very much in a little petri dish there. So it's the library has really sprouted up as the like total one-stop community center for the whole campus. We're always really busy, both with pre-planned events and then just general kind of cool hangout vibes. And it's been a challenge to try to build that online for sure, but we're trying. There's been a couple different library sponsored things we've done. Like we did a sexual health Jeopardy last week that was really ridiculous, but pretty fun. And we got 9 people to show up, which like at this point for our campus of 360, like honestly not that bad. We did a Zoom trivia night, which was really fun. You can use the breakout rooms to have people show up in like little teams together and give them like 4 questions and they can answer them together. One of my staff is a huge Animal Crossing aficionado, and our students are 18 to 23, so they're like very enraptured by this as well. So she did like a come visit my Animal Crossing island program with them last night, which they adored, and I think like 50 of them showed up for. We've been doing book clubs both for students and staff, and we've been doing we do this in-person 2-hour like do nothing time during the semester from 3 to 5. So Olin's campus motto is do something, and we call these 2 hours don't something. So it's just sort of like a very laid back, silly kind of generative like time for us to just go on Zoom. And we trimmed it back to an hour because we just found that worked for the remote setting a little bit better. And we just don't have a goal other than just checking in with each other and just, you know, having like a positive kind of communal vibe there. And then the last thing I'll mention to you is that I work in the student affairs department at Olin, and which is great, works out for me super well. I feel like the library's mission is really aligned with them very well on our campus. And we do, during the normal operation, we have a 9:30 call or in-person meeting, which is now a call, that we call Friday Fellowship, where it's basically a time for us to just be friendly and get to know each other as humans, more so than we would do in like a regular staff meeting. And we've continued the tradition, and that has been really cathartic. I feel like it's a time that we normally use to kind of like complain about the craziness of the rest of our campus, and that has continued. But it's also just like there's no pressure for there to be like some kind of productivity there. It's just like purely in the intent of people connecting and like feeling their feelings and being complete people. And I think that Olin has done a tremendous job of that throughout this.
Great, thank you. Thank you everyone for sharing. For those of you that just saw me cough, rest assured I've had this cough going on 4 years, so I'm fine. All right, so the next question for our panelists, what are 1 or 2 leadership skills that you've seen come out or that you really had to tap into during this time? And we'll go ahead and start this with Emily for this one.
The one thing that I had to really tap into and maybe find my peace with is just this idea of working within ambiguity and knowing what to do when we don't know what to do, because we have to, I think as leaders, we have to think about what are the big picture things. We have to make sure people are taken care of. We know there might not be answers, but we still have to find a way to lead. We're going to have to decide what the appropriate amount of and channels for that information are. But I think continuing to kind of have that confidence to take care of people and take care of maybe anticipating the needs of what's happening in the ambiguous situation. And that's also just not the work of one person. Like I've got a team, and I'm fortunate that way, but definitely synthesizing the information so that you can help people have enough information to not be completely uprooted during this time of ambiguity.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for sure. Thank you, Emily. Jennifer?
I feel like for me, it's been, empathy and listening with my staff. I've been using a lot of that. I'm in conversation with them a lot, daily, often on the phone, over email. I don't have a lot of big giant Zoom meetings. I live in a rural area and not everybody has great connectivity. So it's a lot of one-on-one, and a lot of people feel isolated and unsure about things related to their jobs and not. And so what I've done is just brought myself to that and what I can do as their supervisor and just as a human, and listen to them. And I think that's what's important now, and a reassurance that they're being paid and that we're in this together, and that I'm doing what I can do and what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing as the director of this library. And that's my leadership style in all of this.
Great, thank you for sharing, Jennifer. Anne.
Awesome. So I think the two for me, and they're actually pretty natural for me, are kindness and empathy. I tend to lead with kindness being how I try to approach every problem. I figure if you're doing the kind thing, you're probably doing the right thing. So, and how that has played out during the pandemic is really reminding people to be patient with each other and giving people a lot of space to respond to challenges in their own ways without judging their responses. So just being really accepting and being patient and saying, you know, it's not perfect, but we're all still here. We're all still alive. We'll figure it out. Take a break. Don't worry about it. And that's how I approach it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Anne. Andy?
Everybody's saying some really great things. What I found is to be honest about my own struggle when I'm having a tough time. I have historically really tried not to let my emotions get into my work, but it isn't really possible sometimes, especially when you're facing like a global crisis and people are dying. There's obviously a lot going on. So I just had to be honest with my team, like, hey, I am really struggling today. There was a day that we had a staff meeting, and I'm like, do you mind if I just like lay on my futon while we're having this meeting? I need to lay down, that sort of thing. Being honest, being real, letting people know when I'm struggling, that's proven to be helpful, is like being a little bit vulnerable. And that goes against a lot of what I've learned about managing, but it has proven to be helpful because we're all just people trying to get through a huge crisis. And all we really have is each other in this situation. So being that human, allowing a little bit of that vulnerability to come through has been something that's been helpful. And I don't think I could have done it otherwise without being honest. So yeah, I found that to be useful.
That's great. Thank you, Andy. Callan.
I would give a +1 to being honest about how you're doing as a manager. I think there's a lot of advice out there that I don't necessarily agree with about sort of suppressing, your emotions as a leader, that I think does a lot of damage to our kind of whole personhood at work. And I think it's really dangerous for us to lean into that too hard. And I can say that, for myself, like I mentioned this in the intro, that I had an initial difficulty with letting go of being the person who was helping and being on site to do whatever it was that I thought I was going to be doing. That was in part sort of a dishonesty with like how I was actually feeling. It was definitely a suppression of my partner's worry for me and the world's state of affairs. And there was really, no true desire for me to be there aside from this weird fabricated, notion that I had to be. So I think being honest and giving people a chance to talk to you as well too. I think communication is really important, even if you get to a point where, there's really not much to report every single week. I still check in with my staff every week for half an hour by themselves. And then we also do a staff meeting for an hour. Plus we also have a department meeting every week too. So with the other 7 or 8 people in student affairs, I think that sort of checking in and giving people different options to be in touch with you too is really important. Like we have a library staff Slack channel that keeps us in touch with each other all day long, which is kind of similar to like how our offices are all one right after the other. So I think communication and just being, cognizant of your own limitations and not shying away from that right now. Like, I just don't think it sets a good example to think that we like are somehow above the situation as managers.
Yeah, thank you, Kellen. For those of you who saw me shaking my head, it was not at Kellen, it was at my dog who was barking at the neighbor's dog. You had an excellent answer, and I agree with you. Jen?
Hi. Yeah, I think echoing what everyone's saying is that I've been trying to be as aware as possible of the fact that we're in this liminal space. It's this kind of period of transition where the world as we knew it is no longer going to exist. And I don't know if we're going to get back to the way things were for a very long time, if ever. And I'm not going to make a judgment call on whether that's a good or bad thing, but definitely things have changed. And I think acknowledging the fact that that is uncomfortable for everyone. Being in transitional spaces is very uncomfortable for humans, or most animals. A friend of mine who's a social worker made a comment to me the other day. I was really struggling trying to juggle homeschooling my kids and them fighting with each other. I'm a single mom, for those of you that don't know me that well. And so having two small boys at home and working full time and juggling all my staff's needs and all that, I was like, I was cranky. I was a cranky human. And I was talking to my friend and I said, like, what do I do? And he said, well, you're a lobster. And I said, what? And he said, well, you're like a lobster right now, and you've outgrown this constrictive shell that you've been wearing, and you need to get your new shell on. But in order to grow this new shell, you're in this really tender, vulnerable place. And so you need to go hide behind a rock. And I was like, I don't have a rock. I'm like constantly inundated with sensory stuff all the time. That's just hurting my system. What do I do? Where do I go to be safe? And he's like, but Jen, you're the rock. And I was like, yep. I was like, okay, I'm the rock. And so then once I made that decision in myself that I would be that safe harbor as I went through this liminal transition, and that I would also be that safe harbor for my boys, and I would also be that safe harbor for my staff. And so I call them at least once a week. Some of them need to have a long chat. Some of them want to be like, hey, what's going on? And talk to me for 2 minutes and then get off the phone, and that's fine. But they know that I'm here, and they know that I'm always happy to talk to them any time of day or night, and that they can reach me, and that I'm a human, and that I'm experiencing stress too. Like Andy said, it's okay if sometimes you have to do a meeting on your futon, like whatever, okay, or in your bathrobe. Like if that's all you can manage today, that's what you can manage, that's okay. And I think talking about what Brené Brown mentions, if you've been following her work, about over-functioning and under-functioning. And for some of us under stress, we have the tendency to over-function. That would be me. I'm a juggle 75 plates at the same time, just because why not? And then other people severely under-function under stress. And one of those is not better than the other. And so not having judgments about other people or about ourselves, depending on how people are reacting to stress, is really important. For some people, managing two things at once when they're under stress is almost impossible. And for other people, only giving them two things to do when they're under stress is stressful for them, and they want more things to do. It makes them feel like they're in control. And so being sort of like an emotional detective with your staff and your family members and yourself, and asking those sorts of questions, like, what can I best do to support me today? What can I best do to support my staff, my family members, and anyone else that's in my circle today, based on their needs, not on what I think their needs should be. That's sort of the approach that I'm coming at the world from right now. So it's okay to be a lobster. It's cool.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, Beth.
So I think the tool I've called on the most, at least in the beginning, was advocacy. Strongly advocating to get our Board of Trustees and town administration to make those informed decisions, and getting pushback because they were waiting for leadership from the federal or state level that just wasn't coming. And then I also was writing to local elected officials and advocating on behalf of staff at libraries around the country who still had not closed or who still were doing curbside pickup. So the advocacy piece was really strong. Autonomy, giving staff space to do what works for them, which sort of touches on what Jen was just saying about, meeting people where they are. I really appreciate their resourcefulness. We've been promoting their successes. They're finding great ways to occupy their time in lots of creative ways without minimal guidance from me, just asking for what they need. And then not so much skills, but practices, keep that honesty and keeping communication open, maintaining our say yes library mentality as much as it is possible, setting the tone of being calm and competent as much as I can, but also admitting when I'm stressed too. And it was my staff who said, maybe we don't need to have a Zoom check-in quite as often. It's okay. And apologizing when I mess up and that compassion slips.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left and we're down to our last question. And I know each of you have covered this a little bit already, but kind of shave a little time off your responses if you can. How are you supporting staff and encouraging self-care, acknowledging the stress of both the job-related concerns and the overall pandemic? We're starting this one with Jen.
Yeah, awesome, thanks. So I'm actually going to give a talk tomorrow through CRC Dynex on how to feel good and do good in your community. And I just did a podcast as well about taking care of ourselves. So that's something that's super important to me. Anybody who follows my work, I'm a yoga teacher and a positional therapist, and I teach meditation as well as running a library. And so my staff know that if they need help with that sort of thing or suggestion or resources or advice, then they automatically can come to me. Some of them attend my yoga programs regularly. And I have all sorts of free resources on my websites. And rather than me rattling on about the stuff that I do, I'll just put that in the comments section for everyone in the chat. And so I would encourage you, if you'd like to share any of the resources I have with your own staff. I have agreements with my publishers whenever I write a book. I won't publish a book unless I have the agreement that any of the infographics or routines that are there in those books can be shared for free, because as a librarian, having free and open access to information is really important to me. And I don't believe that people should have to buy $80 textbooks just to find out how to do some yoga or meditation. So I'm going to put my website there in the chat box and go under the resources tab. And there are tons and tons of infographics. You can send PDFs, free PDFs, or videos you can share with your staff, how to do a simple yoga chair program at home, or how to do some easy breathing exercises. And anyone can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram or email or anything, and I will be more than happy to help you with anything that's going on that you may need help with. So I'll put that in the chat box, and then I'll let somebody else talk and tell what they're doing.
Thanks, Jen. Andy?
Thank you. Yeah, that's very interesting. I've also been leaning really hard into my meditation practice to kind of get through all of the stuff that's happening. For our staff, it was really important to me to express very clearly to my team that we have this emergency hours designation that we can use for their time clock. And so I wasn't expecting them to put in 40 hours in front of the screen each week. And that actually took a little bit for myself and for them to sort of believe that. So really being consistent in that messaging, if you have a task, do it. If you don't have a task, that's why we have this particular type of emergency leave. So being real clear with that. I try not to underestimate the value of face-to-face contact, even if it is via computer. So we have the Google Suite we use for our library. So we have Google Hangouts. We have Hangouts meetings Monday morning at 9 to set our video production schedule for the week. And then the whole department gets together on Wednesday afternoons to go over organizational things like reopening and all that kind of stuff. But really just giving time in those face-to-face meetings where I check in with each person, how are you doing? I have a staff member who has 3 kids in a small business that's closed. So if that person needs to vent about what's going on, that's fine. We're all there to support each other. So those are important to me. And then the last thing that's worth noting, we have our whole staff, the whole library-wide staff meetings occur twice a month, and we're doing those also by Google Hangout. And we invited someone from the county health department to talk about self-care and resilience today. So that's today, and it's also running tomorrow afternoon. So making sure that staff know that we care about them as people and allow them the breathing room and space they need to be people during this chaotic time is I feel like maybe the best I can do for my staff.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Andy. Kellen?
So with self-care, on the one hand, I'm not really expecting a ton from anybody right now, myself and my staff members. That's not to say that I'm not, we're not doing anything at all. It's just that I've really stressed shifting the priorities to helping students and connecting with them and, responding to, things from staff and faculty and students above all. That's the number one priority, and everything else can kind of come pretty far second place to that. We also have a lot of uncertainty on our campus right now, as I'm sure everyone here is confronting. Like I mentioned in the chat that we may not have a fall semester at all. And there's a bunch of reasons why that's happening at Olin that might not happen elsewhere. But essentially it's kind of tough to really be ordering people to do marching orders when we don't even know what the next little while is going to entail, right? And I just finished a strategic plan literally a week before everything changed. So that has been a weird feeling for me as the boss. And the reality of it is that there's so many things in that plan that just straight up cannot be done by no stretch of anyone's fault. It's no one's to blame for what's going on right now. No one's to blame for the budget being in the situation it's in, and we can't, buy the furniture we want, and we can't do this or that with our collection because we can't touch it. So my expectations really just are be the community stewards and the public facing, helpers and representatives that you always are, because that's, I think, the absolute number one thing that we can do right now. And that work is always stressful, and that's always, a lot emotionally, and it easily overloads the empathy circuits. And right now that's even more true than ever. So that's essentially my expectation for my staff right now. I also don't care. I'm not ever going to be someone who's you need to fill out a spreadsheet to tell me what you did from 12:45 to 1 o'clock. I don't care. I'm not a micromanager ever at any point in my life. The only role that I want to really, play for them right now is if you need something from me, let me know. If that is a more frequent check-in or help with finding a resource or ideas for programming that you want to spitball, come at me. But I'm not going to, loom over them with stuff to do, because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right to do right now. And yeah, I'm saying kind of the same thing to students too. I'm continuing to pay my student workers. And I'm not really expecting them to do anything. The college didn't really stop me from doing that. So I am literally paying them to do nothing. And obviously I have the privilege to be able to do that in my institution, but I think it's something that if you have the power to do it, you absolutely should consider it. So I don't know, take one day at a time, y'all. And be prepared for the emotional roller coaster to last for a little while. Be good to yourself and good to each other.
Thank you, Kellen. Emily?
Thanks. So one thing we provided is just a really short kind of guide to what are the crisis resources, and then what are some resources that you can use when you're ready to have a little more space and thinking about some self-directed kind of visualization, relaxation, things that'll help with stress and that you can kind of do at your own pace. I think overall, we just keep the at the forefront this idea that we want to lead the library and work with our colleagues with a lot of empathy. We're also not saying the words the new normal. because we really need to honor some time that we're going to need to heal and think about how that fits in the next steps. And so we try and reinforce that we're in this together, kind of in all the interactions that we have, maybe using different words, different times. Other than that, we'll have some fun stuff coming up at those hour breaks that I mentioned, just to hope to keep people connected. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Beth.
Hi. So I made self-care mandatory for my staff. My expectation was for them to try and work at 75% capacity, and some of that time could not only be developing programs, but participating in our library programs. But the remaining 25% of their hours should be self-care. And they didn't have to, we do have to keep a spreadsheet because my boss asked for it. And working in the public sector, if I am not able to justify in budget season why I need every single person I have, I will lose them. And we are under construction and opening a new building, possibly now, not until July 2021, but I can't bear the thought of losing somebody, so I am making them document. Some of them are on the chat. I'm not really looking at it. Just put it down so the boss knows that we're working. So that self-care can be gardening, walking, meditation, yoga, reading for pleasure. It's great if it turns into professional development, like they've used Hoopla to get the meditation audiobook, but even documenting that and explaining it is really not mandatory. I told them napping, homeschooling, tutoring, playing your musical instrument, making art, sewing. We have a lot of staff who are sewing cloth masks to donate to first responders, so that's all approved activity. Whatever brings them joy and reduces stress. I'm trying to model that for myself. I am still probably working 7 hours a day, but I am trying to find my own time to play the ukulele, take breaks from the computer, sit and have lunch with my whole family, which is actually a luxury, playing ukulele, playing with Lego. And my boss has also been modeling the check-ins with our other department heads as well, and he's personally asked after my staff and how they're doing. I did not make transitioning to online programming mandatory because I was not comfortable forcing people into uncomfortable and stressful situations like live programming themselves, but they have the opportunity to produce programming if they want. I'm also allowing them to create their own schedules. We haven't set a timetable for we're answering chat reference from these hours to those hours, so they can sleep in or they can work at night. They can knock out all their hours at the beginning of the week and take Thursday or Friday off. They can work on Sunday if they want. I try to set my own boundaries. I'm available a lot to them, but I do go on offline myself from sundown Friday to after dark on Saturday. And they know that if there's an emergency in that time period, they can text me and I will respond, but they're really respectful of it. And I totally understand when they send me a message to say, I tried to work and I just couldn't, I can't right now, whatever the reason is. We do still have leave time, and some people have sent in vacation or sick leave requests. Honestly, I have just deleted those requests and continue to pay their salary because it just doesn't feel right to make them use up that time. We can roll it over into the next fiscal year. But when we've been closed due to circumstances beyond our control, it's just like a snow day, and I'm not asking them to use that time. It may be sort of unfair. Somebody talked about overperforming and underperforming. For those people who just can't work, like we're just not worrying about it, and no one's really. I don't feel anyone's taking advantage. We're asked by the town administrator to have daily Zoom check-ins, but it just got overwhelming. So we've reduced those. And instead we set up a Google Chat channel, so people are sometimes taking advantage of that to check in with each other. And we love seeing family and pets pop into those Zoom sessions. In our Zoom meetings, really 80% of it is checking in. Mental health, what's going on in the world, what are you stressed about, what are you grateful for, and not necessarily work-related issues or questions. I found ways to say yes to requests for staff tools that they might want to use, like digital artwork or subscriptions, so that they can continue to do their work from home. I said yes to redirecting book budget funds to digital resources. And finally, I think the biggest thing that I've been trying to do to support staff and encourage that self-care and reduce stress is tell them that I'll do everything I can to retain their jobs for the upcoming fiscal year. And I can't at this point guarantee raises or requests for increased hours, but I'm willing to make cuts to the expenditures budget so that I can keep my personnel. And when I was told, hey, you're probably gonna have, you might have to reduce, then no, just give me a dollar amount or percentage to cut from my whole budget, and let me figure out how I can preserve personnel and trim expenses for the next year, because we're actually understaffed in the temporary location we're in, and moving to a bigger library that's almost 4 times as large with 3 additional service desks. So I need the positions that I budgeted for in FY20 and 21 that I didn't get, so that we have enough people when we reopen to whatever those normal circumstances are going to be. And finally, I've really tried to start or end our Zoom meetings with appreciations, those personal check-ins, and asking, what do you need from me? And I feel like I reiterate daily to all of them and individually, no worries, don't worry about it, take care of yourself, it'll be okay.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, Anne?
Okay, in the interest of respecting people's times, I'm just going to share one thing that we do that, because I've already talked about this a little bit. So I've talked about Slack before. One of the channels that we have on Slack is called Library Pet Pics, where people post pictures of their pets or even wild animals that they see out their windows or anything else animal related. And people post on it all day long, and it brings joy to everyone. So Library Pet Pics, huge win. It encourages lots of stress relief. Thanks.
And last but not least, Jennifer.
I know we're about out of time, so I do a lot of the same things, and in particular in my one-to-one talks with people. One thing I do push is our EAP, so that if anybody has any mental health concerns, I make sure that they have that number and that there is a place that they can go and a place that they can call, and I want to make sure that they know that that's available to them, and that it's free and confidential and all of that. And the other thing is that I am willing to drop other pieces of our budget to try to keep them. So, and that is also other kinds of mental health check-ins, like some of you have mentioned, but I don't think I need to repeat those. So,
Great. Sorry. Are you done?
I am done.
Okay. I want to thank everyone, and especially our panelists, for sharing their time with us here today. This is the first time I've hosted a panel discussion, and I think it went really well. I hope everybody appreciated it. I just want to do a quick plug for a webinar I am hosting next week with a similar format, and this one's going to be about self-care in the time of COVID-19. I will be sending this link along with some other relevant links from the chat, as well as a link to the continuing education certificate out in an email probably this afternoon, if not tomorrow morning. I also have a webinar scheduled from a public library talking about how they've built relationships and they're using those now to provide virtual programming and outreach in their community. Would like to remind everyone that the CDC is your best resource for information about COVID-19, and point out a page that people may not be aware of about daily life and coping that I think has some really great information about stress and coping, but also I particularly like the animals section, as I have a dog, and so I think the children one is more obvious but also helpful. What next? If you are not a member of the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, please consider joining. It is for everyone, not just medical libraries, so take a few minutes to do that. All of our training is free, so there are webinars and classes like this one happening all the time, and you can find those by visiting our website. Again, thank you everyone for taking the time to be here with us today, and special thanks to our panelists for sharing their time and their expertise and their thoughts with us today. In about a week, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording. You will receive an email, though, today or tomorrow with the links from the chat session, as well as a link to the survey. We'd love to have your feedback, and claiming a continuing education certificate for 1.5 hours. I am going to go ahead and stop recording the video now, and thank everyone very much.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel. Select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.